Your Uncle Calvin couldn't absorb a $7,200 hospital bill in 1996. That's the sentence your mother told you when you were 11. The night Calvin showed up on the porch with 2 trash bags of clothes and a face that didn't match the man you knew. He had appendicitis. The hospital wanted $7,200. He had $340 in a credit union account and no insurance because the auto shop he worked at didn't carry it. He filed Chapter 7 4 months later. He never owned a car in his name again. He moved into your grandmother's spare room and stayed 8 years and then drifted between rented basements until he died at 58. Still paying down a credit card from 2003 with a balance under $900 that his sister had to clear out of the estate over a phone call that took 11 minutes. You don't know yet that this story is the entire architecture of your financial life. You're 11. You're eating cereal. Your mother is folding a towel. The kitchen radio is on low. A man on the radio is reading lottery numbers nobody in your family has ever played. Calvin's number was $7,200. Level 1, powerless to absorb. You're 23. You have $640 in a checking account and a 612 credit score and a 2008 Honda Civic with 162,000 miles that you bought for $4,100 cash from a man named Doug who didn't make eye contact during the test drive. The car is the entire reason you have a job. Your job is at a regional warehouse 14 miles from your apartment in a part of town the bus doesn't reach. The transmission goes on a Wednesday in March. You hear it before you feel it, a grinding under your foot like the road is chewing something. You coast into a Valvoline. The mechanic comes out, lifts the hood, drives the car around the lot, parks it, walks back to you with a clipboard. $1,840. He says it like a sentence with no second half. You have $640. You sit in the parking lot for 40 minutes. You call your mother. She has $130 she can wire you. You call your sister. She tells you she'll call you back. She doesn't. You search loan no credit check on your phone with the screen brightness all the way down because the sun is on the cracked Civic dashboard and you can't see anything. The first result is a storefront 2.3 miles away. The site says funding in 30 minutes. You walk there. You take a $1,840 loan at 391% APR with a $90 origination fee and a 5-month repayment schedule. You sign before reading the second page because the manager is already rebooting his terminal and you don't want to delay the wire. 3 days later, in a stall in the warehouse bathroom on a 15-minute break, you pull up the calculator on your phone and run the numbers. $2,617 paid back on $1,840 borrowed. The interest is more than 2 weeks of your pay. You stare at the calculator for the rest of the break. You wash your hands twice on the way out because you don't know what else to do with them. There's no second move. The car has to start tomorrow morning at 5:50. You think about Calvin. You don't connect it. Not yet. You miss the second payment because rent and groceries and a $94 phone bill landed in the same week. The fee is $75. The rolled over interest is $148. You take a side shift on Saturdays at a coffee shop that pays $11.40 an hour cash. You eat 1 meal a day for 6 weeks, you lose 9 pounds. Your manager at the warehouse comments on it once and you tell him you've been running.
In month 4, you make a payment 2 days late, and the storefront calls you at 7:48 a.m. on a Thursday. The man on the phone uses your full name. He uses your mother's full name. He tells you he's just confirming the address on file. You make the payment from a parking lot on your lunch break. Your hands aren't shaking, but the screen on your phone has a new crack you don't remember making. You sit in the car for the rest of your lunch break with the engine off, and you don't eat the sandwich you brought. You put it back in the cooler. You eat it for dinner. The loan clears in November. The transmission lasts another 14 months. By then, you've absorbed nothing. You've survived. That's not the same thing. Level 2, absorb the small ones. You're 27. You have $9,400 in a high-yield savings account at 4.30% APY and $14,200 in a brokerage account that's been growing on autopilot for 19 months. Your credit score is 738. The Civic is gone, replaced with a used 2017 Mazda, 3 you paid for half in cash and half in a 36-month loan at 5.9%. The buffer didn't build itself. At 25, 3 months after you finally cleared the payday loan, you sat on the floor of a different apartment with a notebook and wrote out every recurring charge against your paycheck and found $390 a month that wasn't doing anything. You set up a recurring transfer that pulled $390 from each paycheck into the HYSA the day deposit hit before you saw the money. You set up a second one for $215 into a brokerage account a coworker named Hollis had told you about over lunch. Hollis was 31 and made the same salary you did and drove a leased BMW and ate out 4 nights a week, and once told you he'd start saving after his next promotion. You don't know what happened to Hollis. You stopped tracking. You only know what happened to the $605 a month. The brakes on the Mazda go in February, $1,290 for pads and rotors at the indie shop a coworker recommended. You write the check. You don't think about it for longer than the time it takes to write. You drive home. You make pasta. You go to bed. In April, you wake up at 2:14 a.m. with abdominal pain you can't explain. You drive yourself to an urgent care that turns out to be closed and then to an ER that admits you for observation. You stay 6 hours. You don't have surgery. They give you fluids and a prescription and a discharge sheet. The bill arrives in May. $1,847 after insurance. You sit with it at the kitchen table. You think about Calvin. You think about the Valvoline parking lot 4 years ago. You think about how the same number, almost exactly, used to be the thing that broke you. You write the check. You replenish the savings over the next 4 months from $7,553 back to $9,400. You don't take a side shift. You don't eat 1 meal a day. You don't text your mother. Nothing rearranges. That's the shape of the first level of real power. Not the loud kind, the silent kind. The kind nobody around you knows you have because nothing in your life is signaling stress. You're watching the same shock that defined your early 20s pass through your life and exit without a footprint. Your coworkers think you got lucky. You didn't. You built a $9,400 buffer in 11 months by automating $390 from each paycheck into a HYSA before you saw it. The buffer is the power. The power is invisible. Level 3. Absorb the medium ones. You're 32. You have $87,400 in a 401k and brokerage combined, $24,000 in a cash position split across the HYSA and a money market fund, and a Roth IRA you've been maxing for 3 years that holds $19,800. Your salary is $74,000. Your monthly expenses are $3,140. Your job ends on a Tuesday. The all hands is at 10 a.m. The CFO uses the word restructuring twice and the word streamline once, and by 11:15 you're walking back to your desk with a folder. 8-week severance, COBRA paperwork, a laptop that has to be in a FedEx box by Friday. Your coworker Remy gets the same folder. She's 34, she has $1,800 in a savings account, no investments outside her 401k, a $580 monthly car payment, and a partner whose income is variable. Same job, same severance, different balance sheet. You watch her at her desk. She's already on her phone with what sounds like a daycare. Her voice is doing something compressed and bright that you recognize from years of doing it yourself. You go home, you sit on the couch. You don't open your laptop until Thursday. You take 3 weeks off. Real off. You drive 5 hours to a state park you've been meaning to see and stay in a cabin for 6 nights. You read a book about index funds you've already read once. You sleep 9 hours a night. You eat oatmeal in the morning on a porch that overlooks a pine slope. You watch a deer cross every afternoon at 4:20 p.m. like she's punching a clock. You don't job hunt because the math says you don't have to yet. The cash position covers 7 months of expenses. The severance covers 2 more. You have 9 months of runway before any account starts to flinch. When you come back, you take a job at $69,800. It's $4,200 less than the one that ended. The commute is 12 minutes instead of 40. You take it on purpose. Remy takes the first thing she gets offered. It pays $76,500. The commute is 51 minutes each way. She told you about the offer at a coffee meetup 3 weeks after the layoff, and her hands were shaking on the cup, and she was already talking about whether her partner could pick up evening shifts. You said congratulations. You meant it. You also went home and ran the math on the difference between her layoff and yours. 6 months later, Remy texts you that she's looking again. The 51-minute commute is killing her. Daycare costs $1,840 a month, and the new job's hours don't line up. She wants to know how you found yours. You tell her honestly. You tell her about the runway, about choosing the lower number on purpose, about how the runway is what made the choice possible. She reads the message. She doesn't reply for 2 days. When she does, she just says, "Thanks." You understand. The information isn't actionable for her right now. The information is the wrong tense. The runway is something you build before you need it, not something you build the year you got laid off. $12,000 additional dollars in liquid savings buys the ability to choose the worst-paying job. It buys the 3 weeks at the cabin. It buys not being on the phone with the daycare. That's a level 3. Level 4. Absorb the catastrophic ones. You're 38. You're married. You have $341,000 invested across a 401k, a Roth IRA, and a taxable brokerage that you rebalance once a year on your birthday. You have $54,000 in a high-yield account that you call the floor. You have a 15-year mortgage on a $328,000 house with $187,000 of principal remaining. In October, your husband finds the lump. The diagnosis lands 11 days later. The treatment plan is 14 months. The out-of-pocket maximum on your insurance is $9,200 per calendar year. But the calendar year breaks in the middle of the treatment, so the real number ends up being $18,400. The drugs that aren't covered run another $11,600. The travel to the specialist 3 states away, because the local oncologist is good and the specialist is better, runs another $9,800 in flights and hotels, and meals you eat in airport terminals. By month 14, the total is $39,800. You pay each bill the week it arrives. You don't refinance the house. You don't pull from the brokerage. You don't open a new credit card. You don't tell your in-laws how much it costs. You don't tell your mother either. The money comes out of the floor and you watch the floor go from $54,000 to $14,200 over 14 months, and you replenish it over the 18 months after that. During the entire stretch, your husband never sees a single bill because you set up an email filter the week of the diagnosis to route all medical correspondence to a folder he doesn't have access to. You sit on the bed the morning after diagnosis day and you build the filter rule by rule with him. In the shower, and you tell yourself, it's because his job is to focus on getting better, and your job is to focus on the money. Both of those things are true. Neither of them is the whole reason. In month 7, you sit in a Delta terminal at LaGuardia at 6:14 a.m. with a cup of coffee that costs $7.40, and a backpack that has his prescription bottles in a quart Ziploc, and his hospital paperwork in a folder you've been carrying for so long the corners are soft. He's asleep against your shoulder. The flight to the specialist boards in 28 minutes. You're checking the brokerage account on your phone for no reason, except to remind yourself the number is still there. The number is still there. The flight boards. You don't pull from it. He's recovering by month 16. The 5-year scan in spring of the next year comes back clean. You're sitting at the kitchen table the night that scan comes back. You're holding a glass of water. You're not crying. You're doing something that feels like the slow exhale of a breath you started holding 14 months ago. You think about Calvin. You just absorbed exactly what bankrupted him. Same kind of shock, same magnitude, adjusted for time. He had appendicitis and a $7,200 hospital bill and no floor. And the bill ended his life in a way that took the next 28 years to finish playing out. You had a husband with a tumor and a $39,800 cumulative bill and a floor, and the bill ended the way bills end when there's a floor. It got paid. The thing that was generational, the thing that defined every Christmas of your childhood after 1996, the thing that made your mother fold towels with a face that didn't quite settle, That thing is now a line item on a spreadsheet you balanced on a Saturday morning. You didn't break a ceiling, you absorbed a shock. Those are different things, and you only just realized which one you'd actually been doing for 15 years. Level 5. Become the absorber. You're 47. Your net worth is $1,840,000. You don't say this number out loud to anyone, including your husband, who has his own number and trusts you to manage yours. The two of you don't merge accounts. You merge decisions. The investment accounts hold $1,420,000 across 3 vehicles. The house is paid off. The cash position sits at $84,000 in a money market fund earning 4.94% APY. The cars are both 8 years old. You drive a 2017 Lexus you bought used in 2021. You don't drive it much. Your niece Inez calls on a Sunday in November. She's 24. She works at a nonprofit in a city 600 miles away. Her car has been making a noise for 3 weeks and she finally took it in. And the quote is $4,800 plus a $1,200 bill from a dental thing she'd been deferring. And her credit card balance is $3,400. And her checking account has $190 in it, and she's calling because her mother told her to call you. You can hear that she rehearsed the request in the car on the way back from the mechanic. The first sentence comes out smooth. The second one stalls. There's a long inhale before the third. You don't make her finish the sentence. You wire $9,400 that afternoon. You text her. Paid in full, not a loan. You don't ask her what she'll do differently. You don't lecture her about an emergency fund. You don't tell her about Calvin. You don't tell her about the Valvoline parking lot. You send the money and close the laptop and pick up your keys to go to dinner with your husband at a restaurant you've been going to for 9 years. In the car, your husband asks if she's okay. You say she will be. He nods. He doesn't ask the amount. The waiter at the restaurant is named Eli, and he's been waiting on you both since 2019, and he brings the wine you usually order without asking. And your husband orders the salmon, and you order the pasta. And the conversation moves on the way. Conversations move when something has been handled and doesn't need to be revisited at the table. That's level 5. The shocks that used to break you are now things that pass through other people's lives, and you stand at a place in their architecture where the shock can stop. You stop it. You don't make a story out of it. You don't post about it. You don't tell Inez's mother how much you sent. You handle it the way Calvin needed someone to handle it for him in 1996, and didn't have anyone and lost 28 years to a $7,200 problem that nobody in his family had the floor to absorb. You are the floor for someone else now. That's what financial power actually buys. The ability to be the place where a $9,400 problem stops traveling. Yachts and status and boards are decorations on top of that. The floor underneath someone else's emergency is the actual purchase. Inez doesn't know yet that this matters. She'll know in 23 years. The night you wire the money, you stand in the kitchen at 11:47 p.m. after your husband has gone to bed. The dishwasher is running. The light over the stove is on. You look at the spot on the floor where you stood when the 5-year scan came back. You look at the chair where you sat when the bill from the ER came in, 2027. You look at the stretch of counter where you held the phone the night Calvin died alone in 2018, and you wired $4,200 to your aunt to cover the funeral because you could. You think about your mother folding towels in 1996. You think about her face that night, the one that didn't quite settle. You think about how she'd be 71 now, how she still won't let you pay for her groceries when you visit, how the floor you built was something she never had a word for, never asked you to explain. You turn off the light over the stove. The shocks keep coming. The phone will ring again. Someone you love will need a number you can write. The next decade will hold 3 more catastrophes you can't yet see, and you will absorb all of them because that is what the architecture you built is for. The weight isn't the money. The weight is being the one it routes through. You go to bed,